All right, here at Casino Matrix on Friday, shortly after 6 p.m. Haven't been here for a little while. Last time I was here was 2 months ago in July. So looking forward to putting in a session here in the cash game tonight. All right, a couple of things to run through real quick. Neither of which are poker related, but both are recommendations, I guess you can say. And this first one's a little bit on the serious side, but earlier in the week, they wrapped up the annual America's Got Talent show, and a really amazing performer by the name of Kodi Lee took down the competition. Kodi is an amazing talent with a really challenging backstory with him and his family, and so definitely recommend checking that out. It's really good to see a person like that kind of persevere through some really challenging times along with the family and kind of have this really great moment happen for them. So I'll put a couple links below to some of the performances that I personally enjoyed that I thought were really good, and it's just kind of really inspirational stuff. And the second recommendation is that yesterday I went and had a couple beverages with a really good friend of mine that I've known since elementary school. We actually checked out a new bar, brewery restaurant in Daly City, which is an adjacent city to San Francisco, and it was a really fantastic experience. They have a brewery in Berkeley, and this is an expansion of that location. We had some fantastic beers. The food was on the pricier side of things, but we ended up going with the pizza, got the truffle mushroom option, really delicious, so certainly recommend that. And the last detail about this place is that there's actually free parking. It's near the Daly City BART station where there's a Century Theaters nearby, and there's actually 2 indoor parking structures, both of which are free. So if you're looking for a good spot for some pretty good food, really good beers, and free parking, check out Gilman in Daly City. That wraps things up for the 2 little recommendations there. Currently on the list for the 235 game, it's a 600 cap, and actually second or third up on the list. So I'm gonna get called pretty soon, and I'll come back with some hands to report.
So up to 15,000. Yeah, I'm here for it. Agreed.
All right, it's Saturday, going to be recapping the hands from the session last night. As per usual, I intended to do the hand recaps at Casino Matrix, but ended up cutting the session a little bit short because I wasn't playing that well, wasn't running that well, and instead just grabbed some beverages, which sounded like a lot more fun, and it was, but problem was that I had a few and couldn't properly recite hands following that. So gonna be doing that today instead. Maybe we'll save the tipsy hand recap for another vlog. All right, let's dive right into it. In this first hand, I'm in UTG1 with Ace Queen of Hearts. I raise it to $20 and I get calls from the button and big blind. We go through ace to a flop of 8-3-3 rainbow. Checks to me, I see bet $30 and only the button calls. The turn comes a 10, which brings in the backdoor flush draw. I check it this time, which I think is a mistake. I should be betting here most of the time just to continue repping over pairs, but I was just kind of feeling out the table, just sat down, so I check it and he checks it back. The river comes a 6, I check it and he bets $85 this time. Bit of an interesting spot because I think if he had pocket pairs here, he should just be checking back. I think on occasion he might have just some random ace high or king high here. And as you know, I get a bit stationy, I get a bit stubborn at times, and I just wasn't too sure about this player's profile type. So after thinking it through for a little bit, I was just thinking he's either got pocket 6s or some random ace or king high, and I make the call. He turns over the bad news and he has pocket 6s. So sort of right in terms of ranging him there, but didn't have the proper discipline to lay this one down, unfortunately. And I think this is a kind of a good indicator in the early get-go of this session, to show that I'm not really playing that well. All right, in this next hand, there's an under the gun limp. Under the gun +1 raises to $35. I'm on the button with ace-6 of diamonds. I make the call. We're playing about 400 or 500 effective here, and I think it's okay. It's a little bit of a larger size, but I'm in position, and when I play these kind of 2, 3, 5 games where there's a 100 big blind cap, I tend to play pretty exploitative, so I think it's okay to call here on the button, and we go heads up to a flop of ace jack 3 2 clubs. He checks it. I put out a bet of $40 and he makes the call. The turn comes a queen, he checks it, and I check it back for pot control this time. And the river comes a 7, he checks it, and now I feel pretty confident that I've got the best hand. I think I can squeeze out some thin value. So I bet $50, he doesn't think too long, makes the call. I table my hand, and it's good. So if I had to guess, he probably had pocket kings here. That seems like the only hand that makes sense that can call flop and river and not beat my marginal ace. So happy to take this one down. All right, this next hand I raise it to $20 with pocket 10s from early position. Cutoff calls and button puts in a 3-bet to $90. We're playing about 650 effective here. I make the call and cutoff folds. We go heads up to a flop of 8-3 deuce, 2 diamonds. I check it. I expect him to bet his entire range, which he does. I bets $100, I make the call. The turn comes a deuce, putting another flush draw on the board. I check it, and he cuts out a bet of $200. If I call here, it's gonna leave me another 300 back. So a bit of a tough spot here. I think my initial read on this player is that he's on the tighter side of the spectrum. I don't have any history with this player, but I'm obviously going off some generalizations that I'm making based on kind of his motions, his appearance, things of that nature. And I just wasn't sure if he was capable of putting in a two-barrel bluff here, especially when the board pairs on the turn. I would expect him to check back all of his ace kings, ace queens, even if on occasion he has it with a flush draw. I just thought he's that type of a player that you know, would only bet if he has it. And I think that's always going to be my initial read if I don't have any history with the player. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, to be honest, until they can demonstrate that they have the capability to bluff. So despite the board being favorable for me here, I end up just folding, and he turns over ace-5 offsuit. So, and when he does it, he actually gets up and tosses the cards onto the table. So very clear indication that he was very proud of his play, and kudos to him for making that play. I think it's a perfect spot to do that. 3-betting on the button with the ace blocker and still having some equity with the gut shot to be able to continue telling his story. So get outplayed pretty thoroughly here, but the positive is that I get a little bit of information on this player going forward should I ever play with him again. In the hand immediately after, I pick up 2 black kings from under the gun and I raise it to $20. I get 4 callers, so we go 5 ways to a flop of 8, 8, 9, 2 diamonds. Checks the middle position, he puts out a bet of $55 and only I make the call. The turn pairs the board, it comes a 9, I check it, he checks it as well. And the river comes a jack of hearts, which completes the backdoor heart draw. I check it, and he cuts out a rather smallish bet relative to the pot of $65, and I just let it go here. I can't imagine him bluffing for that sizing. On occasion, he can have some missed diamonds, but it feels like the bet check bet line is an indicator that he probably has an 8 in his hand, so I just get away here. All right, this next hand's pretty straightforward, but it's a good indicator that I'm playing super straightforward and value heavy in these lineups. There's a hijack raise to $30, cutoff calls. I'm on the button with 7-9 of clubs. I make the call as well. We go 3 ways to a flop of queen, jack 9, rainbow, 1 club. Action checks through. The turn comes an ace of clubs, so I pick up the backdoor flush draw, and everyone checks again. And the river comes the 5 of clubs, so I make the backdoor flush. The initial raiser puts out a bet of $40. Cutoff folds, and time to go for value, of course. I raise it to $150. She doesn't think too long, makes the call. I turn my hand over, and it's good. All right, this last hand of note, it's a straddle pot. Early position raises to $45. I'm on the button with ace king of hearts. I decide to just flat here, and small blind puts in a 3-bet to $150. Gets back to the early position player. He tanks for a little while, makes the call, and I decide to call as well, given that I have position, and we're playing about 1K effective. 3 ways to a flop of 4, 4, 5 rainbow. Small blind actually dark checks, which is a really interesting, strange play. And early position cuts out a bet of $315. I just gotta let my hand go. But just to wrap up the rest of this hand, small blind ends up jamming for about 850, 900. And after tanking for a while, the early position player calls. The board runs out deuce, deuce. Small blind tables 6, 7 of diamonds for the missed open-ended straight draw, and early position shows pocket jack. So he takes it down, and the question kind of becomes, obviously, if I put in a back 4 bet, could I have taken that hand down pre-flop? Possibly. I think I would have had to go all in, and it would have looked really fishy, I think, had I played my hand in that manner. And I'm not sure if early position would have found the hero call and ultimately would have won the hand, but looking back, it's probably a line that is within my doing at times, but I decided to play this one pretty conservatively and I think lose the minimum, but yeah, pretty interesting hand nonetheless. All right, so that wraps things up. Was in the game for $1,300, started in with 600, had to add on 700 more after getting stuck early on, and I cashed out $850. So book a loss of a bunch of footlong sandwiches here. Didn't play my best, so I just wanted to cut the session short. That's what I did, maybe played 4 or 5 hours or so. And I think lost the minimum given how poorly I was playing. So yeah, I think maybe some of the recent tournament focus may have affected me a little bit in this cash game session. Obviously not a good excuse. But yeah, that wraps things up for this one. Just gonna shoot some hoops now and then get back to the tables later in the week.